Hello everyone, Chris Whitten here. Glad to be back with you today. So in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the technical aspects of recording violin or fiddle. You know, with the digital media where it is at this point in time and people's ability to record radio-ready tracks in their bedroom, essentially, there's no shortage of options when it comes to mics and to gear, nor is there any shortage of how-to videos, reviewing gear, explaining different ways of using it, and so forth. Unfortunately, I find that there's not a whole lot of information out there about strings and bowed instruments, at least not stuff that's really applicable to what I do. And in trying to research gear recently, I've come to realize that there's just not a lot of information available. I want to tell you up front, I'm not an engineer. I never wanted to be an engineer. I was a little late to the table. Was very fortunate over the years to get to work with great engineers, great producers, and most of my experience, which is a considerable amount of time I've spent in the studio, has been I'd just simply walk in and had an engineer select a mic and just work around me. Now that home recording has become so popular, in order to stay competitive, I realized I needed to learn more about it, and I needed to be set up to record my own tracks here at the house. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Without further ado, let's dive right in. So as I've said, you know, I'm very old school. I was fortunate that I came into the music business in the 1990s. Whenever I was a teenager, I've done a couple of videos talking about some of my early experiences with the studio, learning the Nashville number system and so forth. And I was very fortunate. I got to work around guys whose experience in the recording industry went all the way back to the 1950s. I personally am a big fan of older music, older production, and older production techniques. My preference is to have everybody in the studio all at once. All the musicians are there. Everyone has eye contact. Do a little pre-production, write out your charts, figure out who's going to play fills and solos where, and then go in and record the song. As we all know, though, that can be quite a bit of expense up front. The reality is it's much easier to pay as you go, I guess you could say, and overdub most of the instruments, especially lead instruments. It's also much easier scheduling-wise. You don't have to worry about whether or not the studio is available, the engineer is available, the producer is available, the artist is available, and so forth, and trying to get everybody together and on the same page at the same time. I really noticed a change in that way about 12 or so years ago. I went from doing 4 to 6 sessions a week average in Austin and Houston to only doing a couple of sessions a month. With regard to gear, I've had the opportunity to record in many, many different studios with a lot of different engineers and producers. I was a first call musician in Austin and Houston. I've had the opportunity to record in Nashville as well as Muscle Shoals. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to record on all types of microphones and gear. I've been very fortunate. I've gotten to record on vintage Neumann mics and pretty much every type of microphone that you can think of, be it ribbon, large diaphragm condenser, small diaphragm condenser, dynamic mics, you name it. So recently, when I decided to finally get on board with recording here at the house, I realized that I had a lot of woodshedding to do. I never wanted to be an engineer. Quite honestly, I was too busy trying to learn how to be a fiddle player to learn the technical side of engineering records, running sound, and so forth. Aside from that, it always seemed like there was that one guy in the bunch who knew too much about it for their own good. So when something broke or didn't work like it was supposed to, that guy is the one who everybody was looking at to try to figure it out and fix it. I just never wanted to be that guy. So as I was setting up my little recording operation here so that I could overdub fiddle and mandolin tracks for folks, I did a deep dive studying microphones, looking to see what was currently available, what other people recommended, as well as different techniques for engineering, recording, mastering, and so on and so forth. Particularly over the last 6 to 8 months, I've spent countless hours watching videos, reading, and just studying, trying to get up to speed, just to make sure that I left no stone unturned and I have a good understanding and working knowledge of the process. Of course, over the years, I've spent countless hours sitting in control rooms and in studios working around great engineers and people who really knew what they were doing. And I absorbed a lot just listening and watching, being a fly on the wall in those situations. But to actually sit down and do it yourself is a different deal. I have long used microphone preamps on the road, live on stage, to run my fiddle through, especially when I'm using ear monitors. I think that you get a really great sound with that. For many years, I used a Millennia ST2, the twin topology with a opto compressor in it, as well as EQ. It's a great sounding unit, but it's also a very heavy unit. So I did downsize a few years ago and started carrying Universal Audio WA-CX12. I believe it's the 610. It's a twin topology. It offers both tube and FET circuits in it, and you can blend between the two of them. I personally prefer to run straight tube to get that nice warm euphonic sound that only a tube piece of gear will provide. I also got, as an interface, a Universal Audio Volt 276. It does have a vintage mode in it that does emulate that Universal Audio tube preamp that I have, as well as some mild preset 1176 style compression. I do use the 1176 compression in that interface, so I do print with a little bit of compression. Like I said, though, it's very gentle, and I just want to take out any variables. Say I move a little bit as I'm playing, just to make it sound a little bit more consistent going into the DAW. So I had an AKG P420, the little project home studio microphone. It's a condenser mic. As I understand it, it is very similar to the U87. And I recently learned that there is a mod available for it. You can change the capacitor in it to get rid of that high-end boost around 12K, which is real common amongst the less expensive, mass-produced, Chinese-made condenser microphones. But it was just an incredibly brittle sounding microphone on my fiddle. As most of you probably already know, Violin's fiddles are very unique when it comes to amplification and miking them. They can be very harsh, very brittle, squeak and squawk, and make all sorts of unwanted sounds and overtones. So it can be difficult to capture a really good, authentic sound out of one of these instruments. Considering that I am not an engineer and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to EQ and make that sound good, I wanted something going in, I want it to sound as good as it possibly can. Like I said, going back to the old days of recording, the 50s and 60s, all these great classic records that we all love, 90% of the mixing was done on the floor with mic placement. They had very little control in the back end of it, so they had to get it right the first time from the front end. They had to capture the best signal possible and get the best mix possible with those musicians sitting together in a room like that. Isolation was an issue at that point in time, but I also think that that bleed and lack of isolation led to a little bit more cohesive sound. So as I started doing research on microphones, I watched many videos, read many reviews and articles. Unfortunately, the majority of what I saw made very little reference to violins, fiddles, and bowed instruments in general. Of the few videos that are available that I did find, typically it was either very well-known producers who are working on capturing string parts like string ensembles or orchestras, or more intermediate classical players who were just sharing, what their thoughts on it and what they were using. And they typically didn't have a whole lot of experience in the studio and recording and working with engineers. It's really funny. You can sit there all day and find videos of producers talking about what mics to use on vocals and the different types of vocals. You can see session drummers, session guitar players, session piano players, all first call musicians talk about their rig, how they mic their instruments, and all that stuff. But when it comes to violin, you don't see that. There's no videos of Isak Perlman talking about how he prefers to mic his violin. Neither can you find any information or videos talking to somebody like, say, Larry Franklin, a first call session fiddle player in Nashville, talking about how he mics his fiddle. The information is just not readily available. So that's why I wanted to make this video today and talk a little bit about it. I went back and forth between large diaphragm condensers, small diaphragm condensers, ribbon microphones. Of course, ribbons are very popular with violin because they do naturally roll off and tame that high end above 15K, which is very beneficial with an instrument that's voiced like the violin is. That being said, though, I wanted a good solid workhorse microphone. My wife is also a singer-songwriter, and I wanted to be able to capture some really great vocals with her. She has kind of an unconventional voice, not your typical female singer. So I just wanted something that I was all around. I could get the kind of signal and the quality out of it that I expected and wanted. All my friends are session players in Nashville and Austin that I spoke with all recommended Warm Audio. Of course, I spent many years in Austin, but by the time Warm Audio came around, I had stepped away a little bit. I had relocated to the Houston area, even though I was in Austin all the time working. Also, my phone just quit ringing, as I said earlier, because it was easier to send those tracks out and get fiddle overdubbed from people like Timmy Crouch, who were already set up to record at home. So I just kind of fell behind the ball a little bit with all of it. So I heard nothing but great things about Warm Audio. With that in mind, I started doing my research with them. Like I said, I really felt like I wanted a tube microphone. I'm very, very partial to tubes and analog gear. I love the warmth. To me, it gives more of an almost three-dimensional sound. It has just a great euphonic tone and very full, very nice frequency response, very warm. The three mics that caught my attention the most from Warm Audio were their clones of the 251, the C12, and the U47. I rather quickly decided that I wasn't really interested in the 251 clone. To me, it sounded just a tad bit too sparkly for my taste. It seemed to me like I was afraid I would get a little bit too much high end, or the high end might be a little too harsh using that 251 clone on my fiddle. So that left me with the U47 and the CX12. I really love a dark tone. I like dark, warm instruments. Really and honestly, my first reaction was to go with the U47 clone, the WA-47, because it does have that little bit darker, warmer tone to it. I also realized, though, when somebody sends me a track and I overdub fiddle to it, it doesn't necessarily matter what I think of it. It matters what the client thinks. And if it's a tone that they can work with or something that they like and what they consider to be a fiddle tone. That being said, the Warm Audio CX12 seemed to me to be a very good option because it had that warmth in the lows and the mids that the U47 had, but it does have a little bit more of a airy top end in it, and I felt like that might capture those higher notes and higher frequencies on my fiddle without being harsh. So that, and ultimately, is the microphone that I went with. As you can see, that's what I'm speaking into right now, the Warm Audio WA-CX12. I wanted a microphone that I could just set up, point towards my fiddle, play into, and get a great sound out of without doing any major EQing or anything like that. And of course, I want to be able to just send that raw track to the client and give them the opportunity to mix it, EQ, add effects, and so forth as they see fit for their record. I also like this microphone because it does have switchable polar patterns. You have 9 different options with it. Of course, it offers the omni, the cardioid, as well as the figure of 8 patterns, and you have 2 intermediate patterns in between each one of those. I personally am very fond of the figure 8 pattern. I do have some isolation on the wall behind the mic up there, so I typically do use the figure 8 pattern. I'm not a big fan of the cardioid, and for several reasons. Primarily, as I've seen in some videos and found in my own experience, of course, no matter how well treated a room is, you are going to get some reflections from the environment around you. And when a mic is in the cardioid pattern, the frequency response right here, where it starts to taper off when you become off axis, it can give it some kind of weird frequency stuff going on in there. It doesn't really sound too great. I feel like it's a much more natural thing for the mic to operate in that figure 8 pattern, and it gives great off-axis rejection. I also find that if I'm stacking parts and I don't want to switch to another instrument simply because I'm so used to my green fiddle, I've been using it so long and I'm so comfortable with it, I can change that polar pattern slightly and get a slightly different frequency response, and I feel like that can change it up just enough that you don't get any weird phasey sort of issues with it as well. So here's a nice little clip demonstrating a raw audio sample of my fiddle through the WA-CX12. Of course, when you're miking a violin or fiddle, there's a sweet spot in there that you need to find. You want the mic far enough away from the instrument that you're not getting too much of that bow noise. It can give it kind of a brittle sort of sound, and but you don't want to be picking up too much of the room. So you want to kind of find that happy medium in between there. I typically try to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 to 3 feet away from the mic, with the mic above me, facing down, as you'll see in this video. And I try to center the mic right around the bridge and F-hole area of the instrument. I also feel like, for those of y'all who have any experience with firearms or shooting, I personally grew up shooting guns, so I always think of it in this regard. When you fire a weapon, it has not reached its max potential. The bullet has not whenever it leaves the barrel. It's several feet out in front of that because it will continue to develop energy as it travels. And it's picking up speed. And so in that, I kind of regard miking your instrument in the same sort of way. You give it enough space for that sound to develop and to blossom and grow, and I feel like you'll get a lot better tone out of the instrument. Again, though, you do not want to get too much of the room noise in there, so then later on, especially if you're adding effects and so forth, it's a lot easier to control that. So here's a quick audio sample. Let me know what you think, and we'll be back for a conclusion here shortly. So that was a quick little audio sample to give you an idea. It's unprocessed with the exception of that real gentle 76 compression going through my interface into Logic Pro. I've been greatly impressed with this microphone. I mean, from the moment I got it, I just set it up, pointed it at my fiddle, played into it, and it sounded like my fiddle. It gave me the tone that I wanted without a whole lot of fuss. I feel like the secret to great product and working very efficiently is to capture the best sound that you possibly can on the front end of it, so you don't have to do that much to it on the back end. Anyway, I can't wait to hear what y'all think. Please leave comments, share your experiences and thoughts on this microphone and on miking violins in general. Like I said, I can't speak highly enough of Warm Audio. I've been very impressed with this microphone and the results that I've gotten with it. I'm really excited to see last week that they just released a new ribbon microphone, the Fintone. And at some point down the road, I hope that I have the opportunity to have a little bit of experience with that. I wouldn't mind adding one of those to the mic locker eventually as well. Of course, I'd also wouldn't mind having one of the U47 clones, the WA-47 tube mic as well, just to give me some different options with that. Anyway, please let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your experiences with mic and violins or fiddles and your experiences with Warm Audio and what you think of them as a company. As always, please like, subscribe, and share. You click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified whenever new content is uploaded. And as always, if you need some violin or fiddle done on a record, let me know. I'd love the opportunity to lay down some tracks for you. We could work together on that. And I also offer violin and fiddle lessons. We can do those remotely, work around your schedule, and make it real simple. So until next time, I hope y'all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and keep on picking.